The signal wasn't meant for us. At least, that's what Dr. Elias Varn told himself the first time it appeared on his screen. He had spent most of his career at the outer edge of relevance, assigned to a deep space listening station orbiting far beyond Pluto, where the silence was so absolute it felt like a physical weight. His job was simple: monitor background radiation, catalog anomalies, and forward anything even remotely interesting to people who mattered more. 99% of the time, space whispered nothing. The other 1% was noise. So when the signal first came in, faint, irregular, almost indistinguishable from cosmic interference, Elias nearly ignored it. Almost. "Run it again," he muttered, fingers hovering over the console. The waveform flickered across the display. Jagged. Uneven. But there was something about it, something wrong in a way randomness couldn't explain. He adjusted the filters. Narrowed the band. The signal sharpened. Then it repeated. Elias froze. Noise didn't repeat like that. "Okay," he whispered. "That's new." He leaned forward, eyes scanning the pattern as it looped again. This time, he noticed the spacing, subtle intervals, too consistent to be accidental. A rhythm. Not natural. His pulse quickened. "Computer, isolate the sequence and convert to binary." The system processed for a moment before projecting a string of ones and zeros across the screen. Still meaningless. But structured. "All right," Elias said, sitting back. "Let's see what you are." Hours passed without him noticing. He tried everything. Mathematical mappings, linguistic frameworks, even music theory. Most attempts returned gibberish, but the structure held. The signal wanted to be understood. At some point, exhaustion blurred his thoughts, and instinct took over. He stopped trying to translate it as language. Instead, he treated it like coordinates. The change was immediate. The sequence aligned. Numbers emerged. Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine as the system rendered the final output. 3 values. A location. He stared at it, waiting for the inevitable realization that he'd made a mistake. But the numbers didn't change. Didn't correct themselves. Didn't make sense. That's not possible. He cross-checked the result manually. Then again. And again. Each time, the same answer. Coordinates. Not somewhere out there in deep space. But here. In the solar system. On Earth. Elias let out a slow breath, his mind racing. No, that doesn't. A new alert cut him off. The signal had changed. He snapped his attention back to the display. The waveform was stabilizing, smoothing into something clearer, more deliberate. As if it had been waiting. For him. "That's not how this works," he said under his breath. Signals didn't adapt. They didn't respond. They didn't. The next sequence appeared. This time, the system didn't need help. It translated automatically. Not into numbers. Into words. Elias felt his throat go dry as the message resolved on the screen, stark and unmistakable. "Do not awaken them again." For a long moment he just stared. His brain refused to process it. Not the meaning, not the implication, not the impossible clarity of it. "Again," he whispered. The station around him felt suddenly too quiet. Too small. He forced himself to move, pulling up the signal origin data. If this was a message, then it had to come from somewhere. A source. Something he could point to and say, "There." That's the explanation. The system traced the trajectory. Not from a distant star. Not from outside the galaxy. But from within the solar system. Elias leaned closer, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. "Show me," he said. The display shifted, mapping the origin point. A line drew itself backward through space, narrowing, focusing, converging, until it landed on Earth. But not the surface. Not any known satellite or installation. Deeper. Far deeper. The system highlighted the location in stark red. Antarctica. Elias blinked, confusion cutting through his fear. That doesn't make any sense. There were research stations there, sure. Scientific outposts. But nothing capable of broadcasting a signal like this, not with that precision, that power. And definitely nothing that had been there long enough to be ancient. His gaze drifted back to the message. Do not awaken them again. Who's them? He asked quietly. No answer came. Just the steady hum of the station and the silent, unblinking text on the screen. Elias ran a hand through his hair, forcing himself to think. Possibilities. 1. This was a hoax. Somehow. A prank or a hack designed to look like a deep space signal. Unlikely, but not impossible. 2. It was real. He swallowed. If it was real, then someone, or something, had sent a warning. Not to us. About us. His eyes flicked back to the coordinates embedded in the first sequence. Prehistoric Earth. Antarctica. Buried. A thought began to form, slow and unwelcome. What if, he started, then stopped. That was ridiculous. Humanity hadn't even had civilization that far back, let alone the ability to send signals into deep space. Unless it hadn't been us. Or worse. Unless it had been. Elias stared at the screen, the words burning into his mind. Do not awaken them again. The signal pulsed once more. Then went silent. Completely. As if it had said everything it needed to say. Elias sat alone in the vast emptiness beyond Pluto, a single human listening to the echoes of something impossibly old. Slowly he reached for the communication panel. His hand hesitated for just a second. Because once he reported this, everything would change. Yeah, he murmured. They're gonna want to hear this. He initiated the transmission. And somewhere, deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, something waited. The official response took less than 6 hours. For most of human history, that would have been impossibly fast. For something like this, it felt agonizingly slow. Dr. Elias Varn didn't sleep during any of it. He replayed the signal over and over, scrutinizing every detail, every fluctuation, every impossible certainty. By the time the encrypted channel finally opened, his eyes burned and his thoughts felt sharpened to a dangerous edge. A face appeared on his screen, calm, controlled, and unmistakably high-level. Dr. Varn, the woman said. I'm Director Hale. Elias nodded stiffly. You got my report. We did. Along with your raw data. Her gaze didn't waver. You're certain this isn't a misinterpretation? No, Elias replied. Then, after a pause, yes. I'm certain. I checked it 12 different ways. The signal is real. The message is deliberate. And the coordinates point to Antarctica. Hale finished. Elias blinked. You already verified? We didn't need to, she said quietly. We already knew something was there. That landed harder than anything else. You knew. Elias leaned forward. Since when? Hale didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice had shifted, less clinical, more careful. Dr. Varn, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Before this moment, had you ever heard of Project Pale Echo? Elias frowned. No. Good, Hale said. That means the containment protocols held. A cold feeling settled in his chest. Containment, he repeated. Hale exhaled slowly. 2 years ago, a joint international expedition detected anomalous energy readings beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. At first, we thought it was geological, some kind of unknown tectonic activity. And it wasn't, Elias said. No, Hale replied. It wasn't. The screen flickered as she pulled up an image. At first glance, it looked like a standard ice-penetrating radar scan, layer upon layer of compressed time, frozen into white and gray bands. Then Elias saw it. Angles. Straight lines. Symmetry. Structures. His breath caught. That's not natural. No, Hale said again. It's not. The image zoomed in. What lay beneath the ice wasn't just a structure. It was a complex. Ordered. Designed. And unmistakably artificial. How deep? Elias asked. Over 2 kilometers below the surface, Hale replied. Completely sealed. No signs of external entry points. No erosion patterns consistent with exposure. Elias shook his head slowly. That's impossible. Nothing human could be that old and still intact. We thought the same, Hale said. Until we got inside. Another image replaced the first. This one wasn't a scan. It was a photograph. Elias felt his stomach drop. A massive corridor stretched into darkness, its walls lined with smooth, metallic surfaces that seemed untouched by time. The architecture was alien in scale, but not in design. It felt familiar. Too familiar. Elias struggled for the word. Human. Hale nodded. Every structural analysis, every design principle, we've tested them all. It aligns with human engineering logic. Not modern, but recognizable. That doesn't make any sense, Elias said. 2 kilometers under Antarctic ice? That place should be older than civilization itself. It is, Hale said. Silence filled the space between them. Elias forced himself to speak. Then who built it? Hale's expression hardened. That's the question that started all of this. The next image appeared. Bodies. Or what was left of them. Encased in something like transparent stone, figures lay in rows along the chamber walls. Humanoid. Preserved. Elias felt a wave of nausea rise in his throat. Are those? Yes, Hale said. We recovered tissue samples. And? Hale hesitated. For the first time, she looked uncertain. They're human, she said. Elias let out a hollow laugh. No, that's not possible. You just said this place is older than civilization. Older than? I know what I said, Hale cut in. And I'm telling you the DNA matches. Not just broadly, specifically. She leaned forward slightly. Modern human DNA. The words hit like a physical blow. Elias shook his head. That's not evolution. That's impossible, Hale finished. We're aware. Elias stared at the image, his mind struggling to reconcile what he was seeing. They look different, he said slowly. Hale nodded. They are. Another file opened, this one a genetic breakdown. Subtle modifications, she explained. Enhanced neural pathways. Increased muscle density. Accelerated healing markers. Whoever these people were. They weren't baseline human, Elias said. No, Hale agreed. They weren't. Elias leaned back, running a hand over his face. So let me get this straight, he said. You found an ancient facility buried under Antarctica. It's filled with human bodies that are genetically advanced compared to us. And now we're receiving a signal warning us not to awaken them again. Hale didn't respond. Because there was nothing to add. Elias exhaled slowly. You said, again. Hale's eyes met his. Yes. A new image appeared. This one wasn't from the facility. It was a fragment of text, recovered from within it. Corrupted. Incomplete. But still readable. Cycle reset successful, memory purge initiated. Hostility levels exceeded threshold. Human subjects terminated, survivors unaccounted. Elias felt something cold settle in his bones. That's not a research facility, he said quietly. No, Hale replied. He trailed off. A containment site, Hale finished. The word hung heavy in the air. Elias stared at the fragment, his thoughts spiraling. Hostility levels? He murmured. Terminated? Survivors? He looked up sharply. You think they were at war? Hale didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was lower. We think, she said, that humanity has done this before. Elias felt his pulse spike. No, he said. No, that's not possible. There's no record of anything like that. No evidence. There wouldn't be, Hale interrupted. Not if the memory purge worked. Silence. Unavoidable. Elias's gaze drifted back to the message still burned into his mind. Do not awaken them again. Then who sent the signal? He asked. Hale's expression darkened. We don't know, she said. But we have a theory. Elias swallowed. Let me guess. They weren't warning us, he said slowly. Hale nodded. They were warning someone else. Elias felt a chill run through him. And we just, what? He asked. Triggered it? Hale didn't respond. She didn't need to. Because deep beneath 2 kilometers of Antarctic ice, Something ancient had already begun to wake. They arrived without warning. No grand entrance. No dramatic descent through Earth's atmosphere. One moment, the outer sensor arrays were clear. The next, they weren't. Contact, a voice shouted across mission control. Multiple signatures, edge of the Kuiper perimeter. Dr. Elias Varn turned sharply toward the main display. His exhaustion instantly burned away by adrenaline. How many? Director Hale demanded. Counting. The operator's voice faltered. 30? No, 40 vessels. Unknown configuration. The screen shifted, pulling data from deep space satellites. Shapes emerged. Not sleek. Not elegant. Functional. Built for war. Elias felt his stomach tighten. They didn't announce themselves. No, Hale said grimly. They didn't. The room fell into a controlled chaos. Commands flying, systems activating, analysts scrambling to make sense of the sudden intrusion. Any transmissions? Hale asked. None directed at us, another operator replied. But we're picking up intership communication. It's encrypted. Elias stepped closer. Can we break it? The operator hesitated. We can try. Do it. Seconds stretched into minutes. I've got something, the operator said. Partial translation. It's rough, but... Put it up, Hale ordered. The screen flickered as alien symbols resolved into fractured human language. Elias read the first line. And felt the air leave his lungs. Confirmation received. Signal origin matches archived threat. Another line appeared. They are awakening. The room went silent. Archived threat, someone whispered. Elias didn't speak. He couldn't. Because he already knew. They know, he said quietly. Hale turned to him. Know what? Elias gestured to the screen. Us. More text scrolled in, the translation stabilizing as the system adapted. Containment failed. Repeat, containment failed. Humanity showing signs of recovery. All units prepare for preemptive action. Preemptive, Hale's voice hardened. They're planning to strike. Wait, Elias said, his mind racing. No, listen to how they're saying it. He pointed at the phrase. Recovery. Not development. Not emergence. Hale's eyes narrowed. They've seen us before, she realized. Elias nodded slowly. And they're not surprised. The next transmission came through clearer than the rest. A single line. Cold. Terrified. The humans are remembering. A ripple of unease spread through the room. Remembering what? Someone asked. Elias didn't answer. Because at that exact moment, something changed. It started small. A technician dropped her tablet. The sound echoed louder than it should have. She didn't pick it up. Instead, she just stood there, staring at nothing. Mara, her colleague asked. You okay? She didn't respond. Her breathing had quickened. No, she whispered. No, that's not. Then she screamed. Everyone froze. Get medical, someone shouted. But Mara wasn't looking at them. She was looking through them. At the sky, she gasped. They're burning. God, they're burning. Her hands clenched into fists. I can hear them, she said, her voice shaking. They're screaming. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. Because the fear in her voice wasn't confusion. It was recognition. Reports flooded in within minutes. Not just from mission control. From everywhere. People collapsing. Panicking. Describing the same thing. Battles. Alien worlds. Fire raining from unfamiliar skies. They're all seeing it, Hale said, scanning the incoming data. Different locations, same descriptions. Elias's mind raced. Not seeing, he said. Hale looked at him. Remembering. The first physical changes came an hour later. A soldier in a remote base reacted to a training drone faster than humanly possible, disarming it before it could even register the command. A civilian lifted debris off a trapped vehicle with strength that should have been impossible. Doctors reported patients stabilizing from injuries that should have taken weeks to heal. It wasn't evolution. It wasn't mutation. It was activation. Back in orbit, the alien fleet moved. They're advancing, the operator said, voice tight. Crossing Neptune's orbit. No attempt at communication? Hale asked. None. Elias stared at the display. They're not here to talk, he said. Hale didn't argue, because she knew he was right. Another transmission broke through. This one wasn't fragmented. It was clear, deliberate, and not meant for us. All units, engage immediately. Do not allow full cognitive restoration. If necessary, extinguish the species. A silence fell over the room that felt heavier than gravity. They're going to wipe us out, someone said. Elias shook his head slowly. No, he said. Hale glanced at him. What? They're not trying to conquer us, Elias continued. They're trying to stop us. He gestured to the screen. To them, this isn't a first contact scenario. It's a second chance. The realization spread like a shockwave. We fought them before, Hale said quietly. Elias nodded. And we won. Hale's gaze snapped to his. Or at least, Elias swallowed. We didn't lose. The alien fleet accelerated. Weapons systems powered up. Humanity's defenses, scattered, unprepared, and vastly outmatched, began to mobilize. But it wasn't enough. It could never be enough. Not against something that feared us this much. Elias looked around the room. At the fear. The confusion. The desperation. Then he looked back at the screen. At the enemy. And for the first time since the signal had appeared, he understood. They're afraid, he said. Hale frowned. Of us. Elias nodded. Not of what we are, he said, but of what we were. Far beyond Earth, the alien fleet closed in. Precise. Relentless. Terrified. Because buried beneath human history was a truth the galaxy had tried to erase. A war so brutal it had scarred entire civilizations. An enemy that did not surrender. A species that did not stop. No, that species was waking up. On screens across the world, the same message repeated in intercepted alien transmissions. Do not let them remember how to fight. But it was already too late. Because deep within the human mind, something ancient had opened its eyes. And it remembered everything. The first shot was fired by them. But the first kill was human. It happened in orbit. A lone defense platform, outdated, underpowered, never meant for real combat, drifted above Earth like a relic of a more optimistic time. Its systems were barely online when the alien fleet entered engagement range. Target lock, the operator shouted. Weapons charging. Then he stopped. Because he hadn't issued the command. His hands hovered over the console, trembling. I didn't, he whispered. The targeting system had already moved. Adjusted. Calculated. Fired. A beam of concentrated energy lanced through space. Precise, surgical, and struck the lead alien vessel. Not at its hull. Not at its weapons. But at a single, critical junction point. The ship didn't explode. It collapsed. Systems cascading into failure as the structure folded inward, powerless to stop it. Mission control erupted. Direct hit. How did we? That was impossible. Elias didn't celebrate. He stared at the data streaming across the screen, his mind racing. That wasn't the system, he said. Hale looked at him. What do you mean? Elias pointed to the targeting logs. It didn't calculate that shot, he said. It knew where to hit. Across Earth, the same pattern repeated. Untrained civilians moved like veterans. Pilots who had never seen combat flew with impossible precision. Engineers modified systems they barely understood, improving them, optimizing them, weaponizing them. Not through learning. Through memory. But it wasn't just skill. It was fear. Ancient. Buried deep within the human psyche. People woke up screaming. Not from confusion. From recognition. I've seen this before, one survivor said, clutching his head. I know this war. Doctors tried to explain it away. Mass hysteria, shared trauma, neurological feedback from stress. But the data didn't lie. Brain activity patterns were changing. Pathways activating that had no documented purpose. Until now. Elias stood in the observation room, watching the chaos unfold below. They tried to erase this, he said quietly. Hale stood beside him. They almost succeeded. Elias shook his head. No, he said. They didn't. He tapped the side of his temple. They just buried it. The second wave came harder. The alien fleet adjusted quickly, adapting to human resistance with terrifying efficiency. Orbital strikes rained down, targeting infrastructure, communications, population centers. They weren't holding back anymore. They were trying to end it. But humanity didn't break. It adapted. Faster. On the ground, a squad of soldiers took cover behind a shattered transport. The air around them shimmered with residual heat from an alien bombardment. We're pinned, one of them shouted. We can't push through that. Another soldier, young, barely out of training, shook his head. Yes, we can, he said. How? The first demanded. The young soldier didn't answer. Follow me, he said. Before anyone could stop him, he moved. Not recklessly, not blindly, but with absolute certainty. He advanced through the battlefield like he had walked it before, dodging fire before it was fired, striking weaknesses he couldn't possibly see. The others followed, because something in them recognized it too. They broke the line in under 3 minutes. Back in orbit, the alien fleet hesitated. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but Elias saw it. They're slowing down, he said. Hale frowned. Why? Elias didn't answer immediately, because the realization was worse than anything he'd felt before. They've seen this before, he said. Hale went still. And they know how this ends. Intercepted transmissions confirmed it. This time, there was no attempt to hide it. No encryption. Just fear. Human combat efficiency increasing. Memory restoration accelerating beyond projections. This matches previous cycle. Elias clenched his fists. Previous cycle, he repeated. Hale looked at him. You think this has happened more than once? Elias nodded slowly. They didn't just erase us, he said. They reset us. The implication hung heavy in the air. This wasn't the first time humanity had risen. And it wasn't the first time the galaxy had tried to stop it. A new transmission came through. Stronger. Desperate. All forces escalate to extinction protocols. Hale's expression hardened. They're done holding back. Elias nodded. So are we. Because something had changed. Not just in isolated cases. Not just in soldiers or specialists. In everyone. Fear was still there. But it wasn't paralyzing anymore. It was focused. Controlled. Weaponized. Elias watched as new reports flooded in. Faster, more coordinated, more precise. Humanity wasn't just reacting anymore. It was anticipating. Predicting. Countering. They tried to take our memories, Elias said. Hale glanced at him. They didn't understand what those memories were, he continued. They weren't just experiences. He looked back at the screen, at the unfolding battle. They were instincts. Another alien ship fell. Then another. Not through brute force. Through precision. Through knowledge. Through something far older than recorded history. Elias exhaled slowly. They thought if we forgot the war, he said, we'd forget how to fight it. Hale's voice was quiet. But we didn't. Elias shook his head. No, he said. We just needed to remember. Far above Earth, the alien fleet began to falter. Not because they were weaker. Not because they were outnumbered. But because they were facing something they had hoped never to see again. A species that learned too fast. Adapted too well. And once awakened, could not be stopped. Across every battlefield, the same truth echoed in human minds. This wasn't new. This wasn't unknown. This wasn't impossible. This was familiar. And for the first time since the war began, humanity stopped reacting and started fighting back. Because the memory war was over. And humanity had won. The war didn't end with a final battle. It ended with silence. The alien fleet broke first. Not in chaos. Not in destruction. But in retreat. They're pulling back, the operator said, disbelief clear in his voice. All units, They're disengaging. Elias stared at the screen. Dozens of enemy vessels, ships that had entered the system with absolute confidence, now turning away, reforming into defensive patterns as they withdrew toward deep space. No pursuit. Hale asked. None, the operator replied. They're not regrouping for another strike. Elias narrowed his eyes. They're running. No one spoke. Because no one had expected this. Not from an enemy that had come prepared to erase an entire species. Why? Hale asked quietly. Elias didn't answer. Because he already knew. A new signal cut through every channel. Not fragmented. Not encrypted. Direct. And this time, it was meant for us. The transmission filled every screen. Every system. Every device capable of receiving it. Across Earth, billions of people heard the same message. The same voice. Ancient. Tired. Afraid. Humanity. Elias felt his chest tighten. You were never meant to return. The room stood frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. We did not destroy you. We could not. Elias closed his eyes briefly. Because that confirmed everything. You were unstoppable. Images flashed across the screen. Not visuals. Data. Fragments. Recovered memories. Alien worlds burning. Not from cruelty. From necessity. Human fleets, vast, relentless, cutting through enemy lines with terrifying precision. Not for conquest. For survival. You did not wage war as we understood it. The voice trembled. You did not stop. Elias felt something shift inside him. Not fear. Recognition. Entire civilizations fell. Not because you were stronger, but because you endured. The images changed, now showing something else. Something worse. Humans, wounded, outnumbered, exhausted, still fighting, still advancing. You adapted faster than we could respond. The pause. Heavy. And when we realized we could not defeat you, Elias opened his eyes. He already knew what came next. We chose to erase you. The room went cold. More fragments appeared. Not of war. Of aftermath. Massive structures, like the one beneath Antarctica. Machines designed not to kill, but to reset. We purged your memories. Reduced your technology. Scattered your species across your world. Hale's voice was barely audible. They restarted us. Elias didn't respond. Because the truth was already unfolding. We believed you would become something else. Something peaceful. The voice broke. We were wrong. Silence followed. Long enough to let the weight settle. You are remembering. Elias looked around the room. At the people. At the fear. At the understanding. And we cannot survive that again. The transmission flickered. So we will leave. A collective breath was released. But Elias didn't relax. Because it wasn't over. This system will be marked. Quarantined. Hale's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? As if in answer. New data appeared. A boundary. A line drawn across space. Encircling the solar system. No one will come. No one will interfere. Elias felt a chill. Not from fear. From realization. You will be left alone. The pause. Then the final words. For as long as possible. The signal ended. And just like that, the enemy was gone. Hours passed. Then days. Then weeks. No ships returned. No signals followed. No signs of the galaxy beyond. Humanity stood alone. Elias sat in silence, staring at the last recorded transmission. They didn't defeat us, he said quietly. Hale stood beside him. No, she replied. They survived us. Elias exhaled slowly, his mind turning over the final implication. They weren't the winners of that war, he said. Hale nodded. They were the ones who escaped it. Elias looked up at the stars. At the vast, empty dark beyond. A quarantine. A boundary. A warning. Not to us. To everything else. He felt something stir deep within him. Not aggression. Not anger. But something older. Stronger. Purpose. Do you think they're right? Hale asked. Elias didn't look away from the stars. About what? That will become that again. Elias was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. We never stopped being that. Far beyond the edge of the solar system, the last of the alien fleet vanished into the void, carrying with it a message that would spread across the galaxy. Do not approach. Do not engage. Do not awaken humanity. Because the darkest secret in human history was no longer hidden, and this time, there would be no reset.